already mid-year and it's already time to freak out, except I'm not freaking out this year. No. I am going to calm down. Last year, I had already freaked out when Leandra from Leandra the TBR Zero put out her mid-year calm down tag. And I immediately went, next year I'm calming down. Next year I'm doing that tag. So here we are, ready to do just that. At the start of this year, I decided to not have any reading goals this year, to not have a numerical number that I was striving towards, and to really focus on quality over quantity and community and what I wanted to do creatively. And that is something that I've really focused on this year. And I feel like this calm down tag is really aligned with what I went into this year trying to do. So we are going to answer these 10 questions and see how my first 6 months of the year have gone so far. The first thing we're going to look at is thankfulness. And what has 2025 brought to me thus far? This is the first sit down video that I have filmed since I hit 2,000 subscribers. So I'm going to use this moment to be thankful for every single one of you. When I decided to make a BookTube channel, I was just a person in her house who loved books, had nobody in her life to talk about them. So I found BookTube and decided to make one as well. And I didn't know if anybody would care what I thought about books. And what I have found here on BookTube is truly something so special and brings something so amazing to my life. I have met so many great friends. This community that we have all built here is so precious to me. I could get emotional just talking about it. And the fact that all of you have decided to click subscribe, that you spend time watching my videos when I know your time is super precious. I cannot express to you how much this means to me, and just to see the growth in this channel over the years. I mean, again, I'll get emotional talking about it. So I just wanted to say thank you to every single one of you, because you mean more to me than you will probably ever know. Okay, now that we've got the sappiness out of the way and I have controlled my emotions a little bit, let's look at relaxation. And relaxation is the most relaxing book I have read this year. And I'm actually going to talk about a graphic novel that I read this year called Batter Royale. This is a graphic novel that is around a baking competition. And if you know, I love to cook, I love to bake, I love to read books based around cooking and baking. This actually is a Canadian author, and it's following a Canadian team as they enter this competition to get a scholarship, and they have to go to London to participate in this baking competition. And this baking competition, some of the challenges are quite extreme, and there's sabotage. There's a lot going on. But reading this was such a fun, relaxing time that this is by far my most relaxing book that I've read this year. For hydration, we are going to be talking about a book that I needed. And what book did I need this year? I needed Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner. Hannah Kaner and this series has become such an important set of books to me. I enjoy them immensely. The commentary in them, the world building, and the characters are just so close to my heart that these characters in this story will sit with me forever. I will probably always be talking about these, and I guaranteedly will go back and reread this series at some time. This was the final book in the series. It was one that I was much anticipating, and I was very nervous because the last book in a series is hard to write. It's hard to please everybody, and I was hoping that I would get everything out of it that I wanted, that I needed, and I did. Now, did Hannah Kaner break my heart in doing that? Yes. Although I love to have a good book cry, so you know what? Props to her for getting me with this book. But this was the exact final book that I needed. As soon as I started reading this, I instantly remembered why I loved this series last year when I read the first 2 books. I instantly remembered everything that Hannah Kaner brings to a book that I appreciate so much. And it felt like coming home. It felt like coming back to a safe place, even though, again, it's emotionally devastating and it is super heavy on commentary. There's just something about this world and these characters that to me are like a warm hug. Next, we get to nourishment and a book that energized me. And I'm going to talk about my first 5-star of the year, Way back in January, I had not had a 5-star yet. I was working on the very first round of Read It or Delete It, and I got a random Stuff Your Day Kindle book that was a retelling that I was excited about. It was Mafia Romance. It was Why Choose? All these things that I do like, but you know what? You go into Stuff Your Kindle Day romances with, a low bar, because some of them are great and some of them are not. This one was surprisingly excellent. I ended up buying the entire series in physical copies because I loved it so much. And of course, I'm talking about Dark Oz by Geneva Monroe. This book, I absolutely devoured this book. Perfect for nourishment. I devoured the book and it energized me. And it got me started off on the year that has turned into multiple Why Choose books being 5 stars. Maybe this is the year of Why Choose for me. I mean, I love a Why Choose. I always have. But this is apparently the year that I am going to dive into them and just eat them all up. I've already read the second book in this series and I still need to read the third. But I'm going to do that before the end of the year because I could see this ending up on a Best Books of the Year situation. So I need to be able to talk about the entire series. Aside from the content of this book, because this book is such a fun Wizard of Oz retelling, it's very dark, but it has great Easter eggs to the original story. And if you know, I love the Wizard of Oz. I love anything retelling wise, and I love when you give me great Easter eggs to the original content that you're inspired by to write this book. When I ordered the physical copies of this, I was even more nourished, more energized, because I was expecting just regular physical copies. And what I was given was beautiful chapter art. I mean, when I opened this book up and saw things like this, I had a heart attack. I was deceased when I opened up this book and saw how beautiful this book was. I'm trying to flip to another one. And of course, it's not naturally flipping to anything that I want, but it's beautiful. And this was a complete surprise. I didn't order the special editions. This is just the normal way it comes. And just everything about the reading experience and even the collecting experience brought me such joy. The next prompt is to talk about an author that I've returned to. And I've returned to an author that was on my Best Books of the Year last year, but not owning the top spot, but is currently owning the top spot of all the books I read in the first half of the year. And that is Olivia Blake with Gifted and Talented. This was a treat. This was a treat to the soul and is my best book of the year currently by a good margin, honestly. I love the way Olivia Blake writes a story. It is so introspective. The amount of times we spend in the minds of our characters just getting their internal dialogue of what they're thinking at any given time, how they make the decisions that they make, and just being able to sit and really hear what each character and their motivations are. It just brings me such joy. I really, really love it. It was one of the reasons I love the Atlas Complex so much. But with this one, I preferred the story as well. It wasn't just the writing style. It wasn't just the internal dialogue. The actual story of these 3 magical siblings coming together after the death of their father. And we see the complexities of a family and the complexities of relationships you may have with a parent, especially now that they have passed, especially when your relationship with them when they were alive was extremely complicated. And each one of these siblings has a very different relationship with their parent, but also has different relationships with each other. And how does that all work together now that they're together now after the passing of their father? We are looking again at the complexities of family, but also what love is and what love makes you do and the complexities of that as well. This is a masterclass, in my opinion, and is making me want to pick up more Olivia Blake sooner rather than later. When I closed the last chapter of this book, I actually felt sad that it was over. I don't typically feel that way about books. I'm kind of ready usually to go on to the next story. But when this ended, I was sad that it was over and that I will never be able to read this again for the first time. So for a healthy a risk. We're supposed to talk about a book outside our comfort zone or a new to you author, and I'm going to do a new to you author, but also a book that came out of nowhere and was a 5-star for me, and that's The Never List by Jade Presley. This book, I did not even know it was coming out. I went in on New Release Tuesday, saw this beautiful sprayed edges book, saw the words "Why Choose" on the back, and knew nothing about this book. Absolutely nothing. I had seen nobody talk about it, and honestly, I feel like nobody knew this was coming out. And picked it up, read it immediately because I was working on a vlog that it worked into, and I just decided, you know what, let's dive in. I could get the audiobook from my library because, again, I don't think anyone knew this was coming out. So like it was a new release that I could get the audio for right away. And I ended up giving this 5 stars. It was such a pleasant surprise. This series has such great characters, and the magic was really interesting as well. And the love story between these 4 princes and this woman, like, I just was so sold. And of course, with a Why Choose, I have my favorites, and I cannot wait for the next book to come out because I need to know what happens after the cliffhanger at the end of this book. Sooner rather than later, please. I'm sure I'm going to have to wait till 2026 because this just came out. But this is going to be a book that I went into knowing nothing, but I'm highly anticipating the sequel. So for reflections, we're going to talk about changes in my reading taste in the last 6 months. And I actually recently just did a video based on my reading taste, not just maybe 3 weeks ago now. Like, it's very, very new. So I will tag that in all the places. And it really dives deeply into the changes in my reading taste, which I'm not going to do here, especially since I just talked about it. But one thing I've noticed this year is I've really zeroed in on 2 specific genres and the kind of genre blends within those. I am a fantasy and a romance reader. I will dabble in other genres occasionally when someone makes me read outside of those genres, or maybe just occasionally for a prompt or a readathon. But my home and where I'm happiest is epic fantasy and YA fantasy, all the types of fantasy and contemporary romance. This year, at the start of the year, really tried to find what I liked in fantasy romance, because I feel like for me, fantasy romance, I'm a little bit more picky on because I want a really strong fantasy system within the fantasy romance. I don't want it to be romance first. I want it to be politics first or magic system first, and a really strong romance within that. So I've had a hard time finding what I like in fantasy romance. And at the start of the year, I really dived into trying to find that. And I really feel like I found my footing in fantasy romance. So now I can blend my 2 favorite genres together into like a happy cohabitation, and I can read the hype books that everybody is loving when I know it has those elements that will work for me specifically. Within that, I have been DNFing more because I'm not going to waste time on books I'm not enjoying. And I have been trying to read down my TBR that is not in those genres, or I've been unhauling the TBR that is not in those genres because they are just sitting on my shelves. They're just sitting there. I'm not picking them up because I just want to read fantasy or romance. And they're taking up space that they do not need to take up because I don't necessarily see, again, reading taste change, and maybe down the road I will become an epic thriller reader. But I don't suspect that to be the case. I think at this point in my reading, I've just learned what I love, learned what I like, and I'm just going to settle in and be a fantasy and romance reader. Kind of in hand with that, we have Detox. In a book habit I'm leaving behind. And that one I just slightly talked about, which is why I say it's hand in hand. It's finishing a book for the sake of finishing a book, to add it to my Goodreads number of books that I've read this year. That's one thing about having a reading goal of 1 book that has really freed me into DNFing books. At any stage of the book that I feel like it's not serving me anymore. I have DNF books this year with like 80 pages left. I've read most of the book, but it stops serving me. It stops bringing me joy. and I've DNF'd it. I have DNF'd more books this year than any year before. I used to be such a completionist with books. I was like, well, I can finish it. I can power through. Why? It's supposed to be fun, and I'm having no fun doing that. So that is done. That is finished. I am going to focus on the books that I love. Now, occasionally, you may see me finish a book I don't love for various reasons, but I'm going to most of the time DNF books that aren't serving me. So for positivity, we have anticipated releases and anticipated events. Now, again, I did just put out an anticipated releases video last week. So if you want to see my full, anticipated releases list, you can head over there. But I'm going to highlight a couple that I'm most excited about. Obviously, we have R.F. Kuan's new book, Coming Back to Dark Academia. This is the anticipated release of the year for me. And considering how amazing 2025 publishing is, considering this is my most anticipated book, says a lot about how much I love this author, especially writing dark academia. We also have the new Thursday Murder Club coming out this year. I mean, outside of that, I've had the new God Killer book coming out. We have the new Quicksilver book coming out. It's so 2025. I mean, you've seen it. 2025 publishing is so great. And there's just such a long list of books that I'm excited for. Now for events, I don't want to share too much on anticipated events coming out, but I do have a plan for a mini community event that I'm hoping to have come live in July. I'm still putting the nuts and bolts together for that, but I want to do a little bit more small mini community events here over on YouTube where we can just spend the weekend together. It's super laid back, read what you can, enjoy some self-care, and just spend a nice weekend kind of tackling our TBRs together. You will see the full details of that, again, coming soon. So this is just like a little sneak peek. It may have to do with Timmy's, and that's all I'm going to tell you right now, but I'm very excited about it, and it should be announced pretty soon after this goes out. Again, I'm just ironing out dates and things like that. Then we have number 10, and that's plans and goals and looking ahead. And my goals are really similar to the ones that I had in January, which I feel like is not typical. Normally I get halfway through the year, I look back at my goals that I made in January, realize I haven't done any of them, and I'm failing at my goals. And again, I didn't make a lot of book goals. So I think that's why, and I freed myself up this year to have the creativity to go in whatever direction the year took me. And that's been really freeing, and I've really enjoyed it. So I'm kind of going to say the same thing here, is that I'm not having any. However, back to what I just talked about, I want to have more mini community events in the second half of this year. I want to find more ways to connect in with the community that we've made. I want to do more things in the Land of Fairy Tales, which is my Patreon, and I want to continue to grow that community as well. I adore every single one of my patrons. They are MVPs in my mind to want to spend even more time with me. Thank you so much to all of my Land of Fairy Tales friends. And I have some plans for things that I want to do over there community-wise as well. So bigger community, smaller community, and building those up. And one thing this year that I started during Vlogmas and that I've continued through the first half of the year is supporting my local community events. A lot of local book events that I've dialed into, and I want to continue to be forward-facing in my actual community. As a person with social anxiety, that's hard. It's hard for me sometimes to go to events with people I don't know. Luckily, where they're centered on books, I mean, I can talk about books to anybody. So we have a common touch point, but I want to continue to push myself to do those things and to go and to support my local community and find joy and friendship in those spaces as well. But that is the end of my mid-year calm down. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you again to all of the 2,000 of you who have subscribed. My heart truly is so full with all your love and support. If you've made it all the way to the end of the comments but have nothing to say down in the comments, normally I'm like, okay, leave me an emoji, which you can do. Just pick your favorite emoji and you can leave me that. But also, can you let me know what your favorite book of 2025 is so far? I mean, I just told you mine. It's Gifted and Talented. But what is yours? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.